Welcome to the Focus Forward Business Podcast for SturdyMcKee.com.
How's your business going? I mean, really going. If your answer is, well, some of it's great, and well, some of it's not so great, then the first thing you need to know is you are not alone. And there is a way to get more great and less not so great. So check out the 12 Focus Forward pillars at SturdyCoaching.com. The 12 Focus Forward pillars are the structure that you need in your business to give you the time and space to pursue your business passion. That's the 12 Focus Forward pillars at SturdyCoaching.com. Hey, welcome, and thank you for listening or watching the Focus Forward Business Podcast. I'm Tracy McKee. I'm a business coach and advisor and your host for the podcast. Today, I am very pleased and excited to bring you Tracy Lamourie, founder of Lamourie Media. Tracy is a Universal Women's Network 2020 Women of Inspiration winner for the Women in Media Award and the author of the upcoming book, Get Repped, Build Your Brand with Effective Public and Media Relations. Thank you so very much for being here, Tracy. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on and to speak to your audience.
Oh, absolutely. So will you please tell people a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. The bio says I'm an international award-winning publicist working across industries and across borders, and that's true. Worked really hard to get there. It didn't start that way, but yeah. So I'm based near Toronto in Hamilton, which is in Canada over the border. But when it's not COVID era, I'm doing all kinds of traveling all over the states, from Ohio to Washington D.C. to Los Angeles and Vegas and the Grand Canyon and everything else. So I'm stuck up here. Well, I shouldn't say stuck. I love it up here, but I'm feeling a little cabin fever when I'm used to traveling. But yeah, I work across industries, helping people with whatever message elevate their brand. And when people hear publicist or PR, they think sports stars or TV people. And I certainly work with, high profile entertainers, but I also work with about 40-50% of my business is small business entrepreneurs, small and medium sized business, experts of every kind. Everybody from health experts to a luxury real estate agent to a forensics crime specialist to a neuropsychologist, a neuroscientist, all across the board. So anybody who might have something to say on any subject, I find the media opportunities to help elevate their brand and bring gravitas to their name and that third party credibility.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So is Lamourie Media your first business?
Pretty much. I started Lamourie. It was its original incarnation. So I started as a freelancer 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then 5 years into that, we started Lamourie Public Relations and Marketing. So I come from sales and marketing at an entry level. So I think that was a lack of, a confidence to put them together. Like, what if I don't get enough PR work? I'll be able to still, but I never ended up doing any marketing other than, applying my skills. If I have a client PR project and they're doing something on the side and advising them, like a bigger picture kind of stuff. But it's purely been PR. So when we upped our game to incorporation, in the middle of COVID in August, or we submitted our papers in about July. By the time the government got it all back because of COVID, it was October. But we upped our game, so we're now Lamourie Media Inc. So my first company was a general partnership with my husband, Dave Parkinson, that we called Lamourie PR and Marketing, that I'd started while he still was working full time elsewhere. And then he came in because it got too busy and I would have had to hire. So we, took his skills for finance, hired him away from other stuff, and now he's doing my back end. But so Lamourie Media is my first corporation now that I'm all incorporated.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started, though, because you basically you repurposed a skill set you had learned as an employee and working in kind of a past career, if you will. And
not even as an employee, in advocacy work and activism.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess also because I was in entry-level sales and marketing. And so the marketing part, that was my professional trajectory. And I didn't go to school for it, but, I just started to work at office work after I backpacked through Europe, after I finished my, schooling. And then would have just stayed on that trajectory, would have been probably middle management in my career in marketing. Right. So I had, basic market, not basic, I'm smart and strategic. So I had marketing skills, but as an advocate, I learned how to write a press release doing some advocacy work on a case of innocence on death row, actually, in Pennsylvania, which is just something I randomly got called into. We found our way into, which is really strange because it wasn't any kind of thing we'd ever done before. Turned out we were right. It was the beginning of a 19-year, we look on now as a campaign that we started. We didn't use that kind of language then. It was just, young activists trying to get the word out. And I learned how to write, literally learned how to write a press release on the Alta Vista. The precursor
Right.
back in 1998, and it was another literally 12 years before I thought I could probably monetize those skills that I learned in successfully dealing with media, that it ended up having us on my communication had us on MSNBC, Court TV, CNN, all those things with no legal experience and no media experience really, other than a little radio show in Toronto College Radio. So a decade later, I thought, yeah, I'm pretty good at that, and started taking on freelance clients. Once one or two people trusted me enough to hire me as a freelancer, I, rocked the game, did really well, and ultimately get the confidence to start a little general partnership, which went on for 5 years, and then we started Lamourie Media. So it's, and this is what I do. What I've done for myself, literally from 9 years ago, starting as a freelancer with no professional education, no professional experience, nothing but a crappy old desktop and an internet connection, and the brains here 9 years ago, to now literally quote international, and this is the truth, right? International award-winning publicist. I have 38 clients right now, literally across industries from health to cannabis to music to film to, and they're award-winning on all levels. I have business awards. Being won international award as a disruptor yesterday from not me, one of my clients. So I'm playing with the big players and making them bigger, and playing with small guys and making them bigger, and it's fun all the time. So it's fun. Somehow lucked into this life that even from my basement is really fun.
That's awesome. And then we'll get to travel soon again. And you mentioned you'd been Jamaica, Malta, all kinds of places. So
all these random places that I never, it wasn't me picking them. It was like, oh, I've got to send you to Malta. Oh, okay. Jamaica. And now I already know on the other end, I've got Ghana, which I've never been able to go to.
Awesome.
Africa. So, I'm ready for this lockdown to be over. And I'm just like, give me whatever vaccine you need to give me to get me on a plane. Don't even care. You guys argue among yourselves. I'll worry about it, from my laptop on the beach with the palm trees behind me.
So do you wish, like, in starting this up and kind of going from, basically scratch to where you are today, that you had done anything differently along the way?
I wish that not really. In some way I say, I wish I had that aha moment about monetizing it earlier, because the whole time we were doing all those awesome media things, I was still doing, entry level or slightly less than entry level sales and marketing and jobs I didn't care about, for products I didn't care about, all day long, and then going home to do the things I really cared about. So I wish I'd had that aha moment that I hope people listening to will hear and realize that, everybody, whether, I'm sure it's not a project like that, but everybody has something you love that you spend time with. That could actually be something to do with that thing. Could be something you monetize and make it, create a life that you love, right? Whether it's a hobby or activism or passion or whatever, it can actually happen. So I wish that I had that moment, earlier, so I wouldn't have been wasting my time, quote unquote, in the day job, making whatever money to do things I didn't care about. And I could have started this trajectory, because who knows where. But at the same time, no, because this thing that I'm doing now takes a lot of focus on clients and on 40 different clients and lots of moving parts. And instead of what I was doing back then, was working at a day job that whatever, I did my job and then I came home. And then I spent time helping, pushing really hard, and being one of the major moving parts that helped ultimately free a man who was innocent on death row for 20 years. So that's not a bad way to spend your 20s and 30s. And I don't care that I didn't, now I can talk to him every day and we laugh, and, my husband and I are like talking, you know what I'm saying? We're like,
that's cool.
Time he gets out, and he's a recording artist now, so that's funny. He gets out now, he's an R&B recording artist, getting attention in Rolling Stone and all that. And we're international award-winning publicists. And again, rewind. We were like literally penniless sales and marketing, entry level, whatever, people didn't know how to do anything, make a website. And he was some guy on death row nobody was listening to. And now the truth came out in 2017. The courts have acknowledged, and now he's, And this is, I mean, we were talking about, there was literally 2 times when they asked, what do you want your last meal to be? Well, as he had execution dates twice, and both times he refused. He said he refused to give him that answer. I can smile now. The reason I'm smiling is because yesterday he was asked, he's doing a major performance, and he's going to be, flying to somewhere in America to do it, likely if we can get over the COVID flight, some issues that he's worried about. But anyway, he's going to be flying somewhere to do it. And they said for the first, it's, like full artist thing, but he's going to have a dressing room. And they're like, so what do you want to eat in your dressing room? And he didn't even realize that he was just saying to me and my wife were saying, oh, wow, they're the first time anybody's ever asked, since we're going to have a dressing room, and what do I want to eat? And we got off the phone. Then I messaged him. I said, remember those nasty word? I said, remember those people asking you what you wanted for your last meal, and he doesn't say anything from it. And then I'm like, now they're asking you what you want to eat in your dressing room, superstar. And he's like, how about that?
It's so, quite this shift.
Was never give up all those years. And now I always say, there's a quote I heard on Facebook that said, we didn't get this far to only get this far. And I use that like when people discouraged, or maybe they felt like jumping off a bridge yesterday but they didn't. I'm always like, you know what, you didn't get through all those struggles to get here to only fail, or to only not fail, because fail's fine, I mean, but to like, you didn't get here to
give
jump
up,
to give up, to drop after you've been through all that. And to him I say that, if because he's got PTSD and some stress and trauma, when we talk, I'm like, now we're talking from a cell. You call me from a cell, not a cell.
Right.
And I know the story's not over until you get that Grammy. And then we always laugh because it's true. Who would have ever thought this is even possible? So everything is possible. Don't let anybody tell you whatever isn't possible. It's like all the awesome things anybody does, from epic things like that to just starting a business to becoming successful. It's all because you kind of believed you could for a minute, and you didn't let anybody dampen that.
Right. And yeah, and if you did, even momentarily, you get back up, dust off, and keep going. No, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit more though about that aha moment. What led to that, Tracy? Were you inspired by somebody?
I wish I could remember what was happening the moment before. I mean, the thought, I knew exactly what I was doing. I wish I could remember the thought that I had the moment before, because I was just sitting down at my desk, and I was lucky enough to work from home. I'd been able to manage that for several years, even, as an employee doing contract work in telesales. And I was just sitting there I was working for an ISO 9000 company, which is great, whatever, calling their customers about their updated, whatever, ISO 9000. And so I was going to make another, 25 calls that hour, or sitting down and make another 25 calls for another 8 hours, whatever it was. And I don't know what it is, but literally at that moment, sitting at my desk in that corner of that rented apartment, because we had just sold our big house, which was in a small town, and we sold it because we're through. And then we were waiting for the money to come in. We're like in a little rented apartment, and and so all of a sudden there was that aha moment. I don't know what it is, but I just literally remember thinking, I could probably like get people, those press releases I write. I could probably like, isn't that a thing? Isn't that a publicist? Like, because I never thought about it. I've been doing that for years. Actually, not just the Jimmy Dennis thing, but then I got involved with campaigning at that time. Now I'm just disappointed with politics all around. But at that time I was passionate about like the whole thing, all of them. Even the people who think like me, it's just all a shit show, I can't. I just don't even watch it, personally or professionally. But at one time I was all passionate about politics. I wanted to be in politics. I was, and I was volunteering for a girl who became a good friend of mine, who I really believed in and still would if she was running. But she wasn't a politician. She was just, cool. Anyway, so I was helping her with this little activist campaign in this small town. And then she suddenly asked me to be the campaign manager. And this is for the NDP, which we have 3 parties in Canada. So the NDP is the lefter than the liberal, but they're not crazy for sure. They're like, a lot of people would say not left enough, but I mean, they're mainstream. They're a national party, not the top 2, but they're the third, and they're, for sure credible. And so when she asked me to be the official campaign manager, even just for that small, town of 100 or 50,000 people in the area or whatever, I was like, oh my God. I've been on national TV doing all that stuff, but I never thought about that. So she's like, well, look at what you're doing. So I was already acting that way. And then I knew how to write a press release, started segueing it for that campaign, getting the attention, blah, 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 the whole town, all the kids were excited, to the point where the national campaign came up to see what we were doing in that small town. So clearly I was good at just like ramping up the excitement and the whatever. And so then when I moved back to Toronto and I'm there working again for my, little sales job, it suddenly hit me. I don't know, those the combination. It was just like, I was like, wait a minute, I know how to write a press release. I know how to do with media, something that is a mystery to most people. I do. If somebody has something they're upset about, they call me and I'm like, oh, let me tell the newspaper about it. Even my daughter, when she was, 17, or I guess she was like probably 9 or maybe 19, first moved out of home. She moved to the next city over, London, and she calls me one day and says, "Oh, proudest moment of my life." She's like, "Give me a call." She's like, "Look at the CTV news at 6 o'clock." I'm like, "Why?" I'm gonna be honest. I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "Oh, well, she was in her super activist, young, passionate activist, environmentalist days. She woke up one morning and she looked out and they were going to cut down a tree there. And she was like, 'Don't cut down the tree.' And she literally, all Julia Hill, like, and she's like 4 foot something on crutches, right?
Oh,
All Julia Hill, she drops her crutches, climbs up the tree. The developers are like, "Oh, we're gonna call the police, get out of the tree." She's like, "Oh no, go ahead and call them." And then she's telling me the story before I'm watching. She's telling me what happened, and she's like, and luckily the police or the media got there before the police did, which is hilarious. There she is, little 4 foot something girl with passionate with her crutches, little disabled girl climbing the tree, like not having it, right? So it's a great media story. And I'm like, well, then I asked the question, how did the media, like, because she's telling me the media got there before the cops did.
yeah.
How did the media find out, right? And she's like, "Oh, I threw my cell phone down to my friend and told him to call CTV." I was like, oh my God.
She was listening to you, right?
That's my girl. Like, she got it. She understood that whole thing. She knew what was news and she knew how to do it without compunction, without like fear, And I said, what do you think of that? She's like, "Well, I watch you."
No, that's awesome.
So we
So,
can all do that is the lesson. It's just a matter of knowing how, recognizing the story and knowing how
right.
to,
Well, and if you haven't had the benefit of watching
Oh, and
somebody
they
and
cut
going
down the tree.
right,
They ended up she made them promise in front of the media that they wouldn't cut down that tree to get her down. And because it was on tape, they held her to it. They ended up just like treating the tree or whatever, and it was fine. So like, again, what does that teach her? I have power, same as I learned when I was 15 and whatever I did at first, so try to stop a person that learned that lesson.
No, that's awesome. So, and then you've got, so if folks like us though that didn't have the benefit of learning from you and living with you and watching and all that stuff, that's I love that you're now doing that for your clients, right? You're the conduit, you have the expertise. I guess that's one of the themes that I dwell on a little bit, is this idea of your core versus non-core activities or business, that so many business owners, we've already got so much going on and we keep trying to learn how to do more things.
Not exactly. I say that all the time. And
Yeah.
I talk, about they say, what can we do ourselves? I talk about some things you can do yourself, but how effective is it? It can be, but like I say, first thing when people say, what can I do to reach out to media myself as a business owner? The first thing I say is don't. And then I don't mean don't at all. I mean, stop before you do, because you can burn more bridges than you build. And 90% of business owners are going to reach out with something advertorial, not editorial. And it's going to shoot them right out of the water, right off the gate. And then the next time, they're probably not even going to get their emails opened by that editor. So you have to really understand the pitch, the editorial versus advertorial. What is news? What might be news, but not for the newsroom. Maybe it's for the lifestyle section or the, whatever. So understand where you're sending things, understand how you present yourself. It's not a resume. It's what makes you a compelling guest with some components of your resume, right? And and then then finding what I can do, because I do it. I have all these clients, so I'm always all day I look at these sources to find, and then I can just email you, "Hey, here's Sturdy. This fits you. This fits you. Here's something you can answer. I got you this podcast interview." Instead of any one entrepreneur spending 4 hours of his day going through all of those sources that I have to go through to find that.
Well,
Write it down alone, and then booking the time, then having the communication. You're not, if you're an artist, you're not doing what you love, which is being on a stage. If you're if you're a publicist, like, if you're a lawn care provider, whatever you're doing, you're leaving your business alone and not doing it in order to learn my business. So I always say, if you have more time than money, then, sure. I mean, like, spend a little bit of time. I know some people do, like, maybe, but if you have even a little bit of money, and you can throw it at me for a month, I have or like I'm sure other people do the same thing, but I specifically say me because PR traditionally can be intimidating for small business because it's 3,000 a month, 3-month minimum is pretty standard when you call a big PR house. But because I do so much educating of entrepreneurs and executives entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and creatives, I feel like I can't do all this and then tell them, okay, now it's out of your reach. And even me with my business doing well, if someone tells me something I haven't thought about before, it's not in my business plan, I'm not going to just dump $9,000 on a dime to test it. So I sort of think, you know what I'm saying? So I understand that from dealing with solopreneurs too, and little startups, even startups that are going to be giant soon, like my, award winning on the international level, they're still a little startup. Even though they got $500,000 in funding, they've still got to allocate. So you have to understand where they are, and then you can grow with them. But also, I just want them to access PR. I don't want I see how they all have blind spots. It's really, and the way I do it, I don't undercut myself. I figured out ways that I know when before I hire someone, before someone hires me, I know when I don't take them on unless I know pretty much out of the board. I know I can at least get them this, and this from based on the relationships I have and where I already know I can pitch them where they fit. I pretty much know by the time I take their money that I can at least I could start the ground running with some real results for them. And then we still have the other 3 weeks, for me to figure out what I can get for them. So at the end of the month, guaranteed, they're going to see. So any entrepreneur who could spend like $1,000 or whatever for 1 month, and it gets less if you decide to get 3 months. There's stupid deals and discounts and everything. But I mean, what they come out, it's not a joke. They come out with, number one, they're going to see me for how I frame them. And even if they only hire me for that 4 weeks, and then they say, I can't do it anymore, bye-bye, they're going to end up with that pitch. They've got that pitch now that I wrote. They see how they're framed. Their mind is literally going to be blown away by the kind of media opportunities I can get them. And I mean anybody. Like if you do, I always use the example. If you do lawn care, I listed the clients that I have from the real estate agent to, people. It's not, you don't have to be a celebrity. There's opportunity literally for everybody. I'm actually there's a thing called Help a Reporter Out. One of those things I look at every day. Right? People don't realize it. I'm looking at it right now. Before we got on the phone, they're looking for somebody with a deadline of the 23rd is looking for.
Let me interject real quick though, because I don't think I used to subscribe to Harrow 10 years ago, right? To Help a Reporter Out, and they had an email kind of list and stuff. And I've worked in kind of helping organizations, right? Did some communication external for EO. And one of the things that stood out to me that you kind of alluded to a couple times here, but haven't said specifically, explicitly, is these different organizations, whether they're an individual reporter or a publication or whatever, they've got an editorial calendar. They've got topics and subjects they're specifically looking for a month, 2 months, 3 months longer down the road. And they're searching those topics out. And for you as an individual business owner to be weeding through all that doesn't make a lot of sense. But the point being that, that is your job, right? And if somebody comes to you on a specific topic or industry or what have you, you already have 4 different places you could put them based on what the media is looking for. So yeah, there's the emergent story like your daughter, but then there's also all this planned topics and content and stuff that
I call that the opposite of a press release when I'm trying to explain it to people. Everyone knows of a press release where hey, you have a story, we call the media, we put it out there, we see who picks it up. And the opposite of that is things like there's a bunch of matchmaker, for podcast services. And by the same token, there's services like the Help a Reporter Out, where I in 1 week got one client in just 1 week, the same client in the New Yorker and Reader's Digest. I've gotten other clients in Good Housekeeping. I got myself in the New York Times, in New York Magazine, in The List, in Oprah.com, I can't even think, so many things. And that's exactly, they're right now, so with a deadline of the 25th of April, a reporter here is looking for somebody who can speak on a vegan skincare routine. So they're
pretty niche.
Maybe somebody's a vegan, they make they make a vegan whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, here's what they should do. It's not an opportunity to say, here's my product, but it's an opportunity to say, oh, Tracy from Tracy's vegan product line says, whenever you're looking for products, you should blah, 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 blah. So you have that mention, that gravitas, that third party. And there's a million opportunities at that and reporters are looking all the time, because they're assigned 3 stories. They're not experts. They're not running out the door, knocking on the door. And they come to publicists. Like real estate, I use this as an example all the time. If you listen to some of my podcasts, that's why I had to go and find a real estate agent client, because I was like, there's so many. So there's a million agents. We know a million agents. But how do they differentiate themselves? They all have the exact same stuff on their pages. They look the same, picture, everything else, right? But you know what? Every single day on heroin stuff, every day, more than celebrities, more than anything, I see media looking for real estate agents to quote, or people with expertise on housing design or in moving. Because it's lifestyle, it's money, it's everything like that. It's so common. And real estate agents, 90% do not know about those opportunities. And they spend tons of money, marketing money, buying giant backsplashes and, bus shelter ads and everything.
Grocery cards.
Forbes is that. But why does Forbes not call the real estate agent? Because they want someone who can give good quote. They call the publicist, or they use these services so that somebody who understands media, who will be editorial, not advertorial, who won't freeze up in front of, so get yourself in the mix. And it doesn't matter what you do for a living. I always say cleaning toilets at the hotel, lawn care, garbage, you have stories, your personal story. Yep. And you have, and then you have stories about your business, and you have stories that we don't know, based on not just what you do, but what's around what you do. So every single, if you don't believe me, challenge me. Like, call me for a 30-minute consult, and I'll tell you what we can do for you specifically, because I can get you out there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So going back to kind of you as an entrepreneur yourself, time and prioritization, getting things done is always a challenge. What tips or advice do you have for other business owners on prioritizing, on creating structure, or folks who are struggling with not having enough time?
Yeah, that's been, to me, I don't know if what works for me or the way I works for other people, or if it's sort of, like I find, and I've seen some people, organizational people, talk about this, but it's nothing I'd ever read or anything. But I find for me, when I'm overwhelmed and have like a lot of things to do, and mostly it's, usually I can juggle things pretty easily. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year, it'll happen that all of a sudden I have 4 clients needing something specifically, urgently, date specific that day. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, I literally pull a 24-hour, but I managed to make every single thing work at the end. I'm like, oh, I'm a rock star. But usually usually it doesn't happen like that, right? You're able to, but still, I mean, I like paper still. This is literally my to-do list. Look how excited I get when I cross something up. But this is like my to-do for like the next week or so. There's a million other things I can do. This is like my priority list. And I literally write it down like that, and on paper. And I literally cross it off like that. And sometimes I'll allocate a certain time, like, okay, I'm going to work on this press release, and setting this out, for the next hour. And then I'm going to stop at the hour. Because then I'm going to race myself for that whole hour to see how effective I can be, how much, not like ineffective, but I mean like how many I can get out. I'm not getting up and I'm being super like focused on that job, and and then when that hour is done, even if that job's not done, as long as it's not hugely time sensitive, that's a different story. But if I'm, you're juggling a few different projects that week, I'll put that one aside. And then I'll go on to the next one. Okay, now I'm going to call, all the publicists for all the high profile Hollywood people that my African client wants to. So for that 1 hour, that's all I'm going to do. And then I cross that off. So I've set a few things, like I've got to go through Harrow 3 times a day. I've got to go through those are all on my list, literally. And then I cross it off. I look at the thing, and I've gotten those things done. And I just do it like that. And I find that way it's just organizational. I've done a little bit, and you'd be surprised what you can do in an hour too. If you like literally really, really focus on an hour, there's a lot you can do where you can say, okay, then you can report to the client, look, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Does that all look good? Okay. So while they're looking that over, what you're doing, then I can work on the next client, right? And then I get the thing, then I can review, then I send a piece of writing for them to review, for that, you know what I mean? Or I have a conference call, then I go back to the first one. Oh, okay, that's ready to go. That one's ready to go out. So I pretty much, if something's time sensitive, calendar it. My calendar, I'm become one of those people that I used to laugh at. And I'm also now one of the calendar. Let me check my calendar. Now I can't imagine living without it. And now I really become one of those people who sees what the beauty of an admin assistant would be. Because now I spend the first 3 hours of my day, because I do all those pitches, end up booking things. So imagine if you're an entrepreneur and this isn't even your job. Like, now I'm
right.
my day just booking those things. And that's something I want to offset now to a junior publicist to book those things so that I can continue to reach them out. And then maybe when they call in, you know what I mean? I'm doing the reach out
Totally.
and say,
Yeah.
so I can get you in there. And then they can, when they respond positively. So I'm looking for ways to do that.
Well, I mean, one of the things you mentioned there, though, and it seems so simple and maybe self-evident, but I think it bears some calling out, is writing it down, just writing it down, even keeping the list, because then you're not trying to remember all the things you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge. And, you know, and I don't know why I find just like it's really satisfactory to just cross that next thing off the list. And
well,
in the morning, I'm almost like waiting to get to my list. At night, I almost don't want to go because I want to do another 10 minutes on my list. And you know what else I do is I intersperse a couple little things in there that aren't work related. And I'm a workaholic. So all my time, I can be working at 2 a.m. Doesn't matter if it's on my list, I'm doing that, right? But like I put a couple of things in there too, like, you know, yeah, just a few things in there that I want to do. Like, you know, if there was a couple of contests that I wanted to enter some silly thing online, I put in there contests or go read these articles. Very rare. Like, I mean, maybe one every 9th thing, which means every 9th hour, I might stop and go, all right, you know what? I'm just going to chill for a minute and sit here and do the other things, answer that letter, you know, to my family. Somebody texted me or emailed me that I've been putting off because I'm so busy. It's not work related, but I'm going to answer that friend, or, you know, schedule those things in too, because those are also important.
Yeah.
And not podcast, but I mean a lot of things that we leave behind. Like, you know, I mentioned thank my grandma for that thing, or, you know, do those things that you'll if you didn't do those things. So even schedule an hour in to get your little things in, so that they're not distracting you later in the day too, right?
Well, and that written list too allows you, when you go to focus on the one thing, to not be distracted by the worries, the concerns, or the other stuff you got to get done. You can go back to it. It's there.
Unless media calls, like if I have a client that, you know, my lowest paid client that only paid a little bit, or my highest Hollywood client, doesn't matter who I'm working on. If media calls for somebody, media doesn't wait, you know, so right away, oh, hold on, and I'll deal with that in terms of like if it's an you know, like a network and they're going to interview somebody and it's for tomorrow time sent, not a time
you got to set that up.
I'll take care of that. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. Like who I'm working on my smallest guy for an hour who's paid me $200 for one little project, you know, like for an hour and a half of work. And that's his hour and a half. It doesn't matter if Hollywood guy calls me. And if he does, I'll message Hollywood. I'm busy right now. And they know, okay. And anybody from little guy to big guy, well, they know if they tell me. But if it's like, no, but I really need you. Okay, then again, it doesn't matter who it is, big or little. If it's you got an urgent question, maybe media's calling you, maybe something's going on, you need your publicist, I'm going to put it aside, obviously. But in terms of when I've got an hour to work on something, nobody intrudes on that hour. It doesn't matter who they are. That's your hour. Now I'm going to the next one. You know, so then I'll go back to yours and that. But just I split it up that way because then I find I'm always fresh and I'm not getting tired of the project too. Because it's true, you know, when you start something else, your brain is fired up differently and you're like, okay. And then you go back to the other one. Maybe you've had some ideas and you know, so.
Oh, that's cool. So what, you know, one of the things we talk about on the podcast, and one of the things I'm passionate about, is so many business owners, entrepreneurs feel like they're alone, like they're facing these, and I think it's even worse now with COVID and stuff. We don't have the opportunity to talk and connect with as many people as often as maybe we used to. We're facing these challenges and what have you. And, you know, the dirty little secret is that all business owners are facing some kind of challenge, right, on any given day. So what are you currently facing? What challenges are you facing in your business, and how are you working to overcome them?
I think one thing I've just sort of passed. I'm just sort of getting my handle on now, but it was a you know thing for a long time, and I think it is one that is and it's still continuing to be, you know, like it's still a challenge. I think a lot of business owners have this, and especially people who started as freelancers, I think, and especially people who, like, I didn't come from a business background. I didn't know how to build a business. I'm very good at what I do. Like I knew how to be a freelancer, like I said, be an excellent freelancer. But in terms of what the back end and, you know, all that stuff is something I just didn't go to school for. I wasn't raised thinking I was going to do that. It wasn't, you know, most of us are raised to be employees, not raised by our parents, but I mean, was taught to be employees because we see differently really up close, right? Sure. And so pricing, because at first I definitely, when I came out of the board, when I was a freelancer, you know, when I just started, when I was using Upwork and Elance and stuff like that to get it was Elance in those days to get my
Mhm.
clients. I did really what I shouldn't have done for my level, but I guess I had to get more faith in myself as well and feel like I had to put the gravitas behind me, which I've obviously been very successful at doing. But is I came out the board offering, I mean, I didn't even know a PR publicist. When I heard what publicists charge then, there's no way I would have the confidence to come out of the gate saying, oh, pay me this, that, at that point. I was coming from being a glorified telemarketer, basically, you know?
Mhm.
So like 20 bucks an hour was like, you know, a good wage for me in those days. So I priced, you know, like you know, what sounded like to a telemarketer a good wage, and you know, just sort of offered PR, like excellent PR, because I was good from the beginning, you know, at the price that you would pretty much pay for like a low level service provider. And I think, you know, I didn't realize, although I got clients, did great work, and I obviously, you know, I managed to build my business on it in 9 years. It hasn't, I changed that way of thinking. Most of my people pounding my, like, it took a long time for me to have the confidence because people were afraid of losing that client. We're afraid when they say how much is it of saying and then pricing ourselves out. But we have to have the, you know, we really have to understand that our services aren't based on somebody else's budget. And this, I mean, there's a challenge sometimes because this time of COVID when everybody's having a hard time, and this sometimes it is advantageous to take that client, you know. But in terms of always undercutting yourself, like I was, you know, at one point I was stealing from, I was told, my business consultant was like, you're crazy, you're like stealing from your children, you know, to give a good deal to everybody you meet, where they don't even need, like, they don't even necessarily need it. Anybody will tell you they get,
Right.
if you like start saying, oh, I'll give you a deal before they even, you know, then
They're not asking for
anybody
a
will, you know
deal.
what I mean? Like, I know who definitely have money say to people, oh, I don't know if I have money, you know. So if you like just jump at the first time someone says that, no, you have to be like, and you have to be faith, you know, confident enough that when the time is right to add a zero and then add another zero. And every time I've added those zeros, and you know, also be ready to, you know, make an exception if you feel like you feel called to, you
Mhm.
know, but you can't do that all the time because, like I said, my consultant said to me, and she was right. Like I said, I'm not a business. I come from activism, and she said you need to start acting like the direct or the. This is before we incorporated, but she said you need to start acting like the director of a company, a
Mhm.
business that exists to make money and to feed, you know, its employees and its whatever. That's what you know, you're not a charity. You're
Right.
acting like you're a charity, you know, and so you got to realize you know what you do, you get clients in good housekeeping, you build their business, you literally build their businesses, you get the media attention that builds their credibility with investors, with clients, with, you know. And she's like, that's like, she's an accountant. She was like, at this time, that was years ago, but she was like, I don't work for less than 150 bucks an hour. She's like, and I'm doing their taxes. You're getting people in good housekeeping. Stop it. So it, you know, it took her a long, long time. It ended up finally, I still don't want to only be available to the elite, like we said. So that's why I ended up figuring out ways after hours of arguing with figuring out a way that I can do without undercutting myself at all. I can still offer, I don't do it by the hour. No one's going to ask me how many hours or minutes or weeks or did it take you to get me those 5 media articles and those 2 interviews. Does anybody really care if at the beginning, like, it's not about how
Mhm.
much time I took, it's about the results. So at the beginning
Right.
of the month, I tell you, this is the results you're going to get. Some of them might take me, I don't like, at the beginning, I know this won't take me long, this won't take me long, this won't take me long, because I already have established those relationships. And then the next 3 weeks, like I said, it's up to whatever I see. I might get super excited and see a billion opportunities. I might spend 50 hours on your project,
Mhm.
you know, if I see the opportunities and the time and I think it's going to be worth it. Or I might just be, you don't know how much time, or I might, maybe I'm only checking the harrow and you owe me, you know, my only time I'm spending is, you know, when I'm checking all the harrows and all those things, what I also do for my other clients, and then
Mhm.
sending you the thing. And if you're really on the ball and you just send me the answers, all I got to do is send them to the reporter. It doesn't actually take me a lot of my time. And
Right.
you, depending on how well you, you know, work with me, you might have 50 articles for my time,
Mhm.
you know? So yeah, so that's what I end up doing is making, I have packages that I'm proud to say are available for anybody who's in business. You know, like you don't,
Right.
it's not far reaching, under $1,000. Anybody who's in business can afford one of those packages, and they get even cheaper if you buy, you know, more monthly or whatever. Same with creatives. If you can't afford it today, if that's a goal and you see the value, which there is a value, then you'll be able to, you know, save up that few dollars to do it tomorrow. Take a little bit out of your ad budget, budget for it, don't go away for 2 days or something and it's worth spending the money on.
Well, that's a great lesson for all entrepreneurs too, to figure out the value of what you're bringing and then price things and own it and not be embarrassed or worried about it. That is what you deliver. Yeah. No, that's great. So are there any like articles you're reading right now or favorite business books or any content that you want to share with people that you think would help them out?
I haven't been reading anything lately because I'm just so busy, but I always say there is one book that I think across industries, and I always say it is one of my clients, but one of my first clients, I have a lot of clients who write books, so I'm not saying that because it's a client. But whenever people talk about business audience, I think this one works for every business audience. It certainly worked for me, not, just in my business, it resonates with me. But one of my first clients that I met way back as a freelancer, Louina Bayer, she's a civility expert, and she wrote a book about how that matters in business. And it's called Hard Business. It's called The 30% Solution. And I can't remember the subtitle, How Civility at Work. Anyway, but basically in real numbers, real data creates customer retention and employee retention, which is bottom line stuff. And so the whole book, it's about, more than being nice, but about how, ruthless is. It's not, but you can be kind, you can be nice. So it's about civility. So there's more to that than kindness and niceness, but civility at work, and it's bottom line stuff. And I think it fits with me because we're really heart centered, and we start, like I said, my trajectory story. That's how I got into this, was trying to help people. I still am really proud that our work elevates and celebrates, a little phrase that I came up with in the middle of a podcast one day when I was trying to talk about how I don't like, because I was talking about how the podcaster had said he doesn't like, you wouldn't normally interview a publicist, because the idea of spin and all that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not a spin doctor. And I think the word PR needs like some PR, because it makes you feel like it's the politician correcting the politician's misdeed or something. And I was trying to explain what I do. And I was like, no, really, it's about like, they're all awesome. And I'm just like elevating and celebrating. And I was like, oh, it's a great tagline. And it really is. Yeah. But so now I'm going to make it official. But honestly, elevating and celebrating, that's what I do. They're all awesome, whether they're creatives or they're, world-changing writers or speakers or idea, generators, or there's small businesses making awesome things happen, because they're all awesome. I never was really business-minded growing up. Now I see like the power of taking that power and building that power for yourself and other people, and then becoming a job creator. And you don't have to just be the lowest rung on the ladder, or in my time growing up, I would have thought the jobs that I would have thought were good jobs growing up with a good salary. Now, I still obviously think they're good money, but I see that they're sad really in a way, because they're limited at that. So you work really, really, really hard, then you get to that elevated plateau of the highest you make it your profession when somebody else is paying you. And then you can't do any better than that. You can't work harder than that. You can't bring more to the table that's going to get you more, when that's pretty much the job, without starting to create something yourself. So now my dream for all, other than my daughter, who loves medicine since she's 15, like kids, she's a kid, and she's on the doctor, she's in third year school trying to go to be a surgeon. So that's obviously not like a entrepreneur thing. You got to go to school for that. But everybody else, passion. I say, just like, honestly, I almost quoted Nike by accident, just do it. But what I will quote? The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah.
I always love it. It says, what is, dream it, be it.
Be it, don't dream it. Yep.
So don't just dream about it or think about it or think maybe someday. Just do it. Take the first step. I think I'm a publicist.
No, it's great. But I mean, I deal with a lot of people in surgeons and people in healthcare and physios and stuff. And you go out and start your own private practice, and you are in business even after all that schooling for the thing that you're good at, and then you still got to learn this other thing in order to survive.
That's true too. Yeah,
the whole crazy. Business.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Exactly. Just like without Jane McCormick, my business consultant, I got a name checker. Honestly, PR Jane Consortium. But honestly, because she, as good as I am at the front. Like, she's brilliant at the back. And people we need, everybody needs someone. We don't know what we don't know. Just like I look at businesses, I'm like, man, why are you not utilizing this PR? Why are you not, because to me, it's just like, just easy for the taking. Why aren't they doing it? It's free media and it elevates them this much, and they're not. Same way, someone like Jane looks at me and she's like, oh my gosh, look at this kid. Like, she's so good at what she does. She's pumping way above her weight. She's got clients in Hollywood. She's got clients in Australia. She's sitting here acting like a freelancer. For God's sake, girl, make it a corporation. And for like 2 years, she's telling me this, and I'm like, yeah. And then finally over COVID, I finally got it through my head. Now I'm so glad. But our comfort level, right? We have to get it. In order to succeed, we got to learn what we don't know and jump out of our comfort level. And so for people listening to this, thinking media sounds scary, because I know a lot of people think, oh, that sounds great for my business, but there's no way I could do it. It honestly, it isn't scary. I have some clients who never want to talk on the phone to anybody. You don't necessarily have to do TV or radio. You can be building your brand with writing stuff, with being quoted in, things like Reader's Digest. They usually send you the questions and you answer them, and then you send them back, and then you're in the Reader's Digest. So there's a lot of things you can do depending on your own comfort level. You don't necessarily have to be on stages or on TV if that's not what you're comfortable with. But you do need to start thinking about building your brand, or your personal brand, building your reputation for thought leadership, which puts, it just booms you towards success no matter what you plan to do now or later. That's going to help.
No, I love it. That's a great final thought to leave us with. So thank you very, very much, Tracy. I appreciate it. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.